Hi, it's Lisa here with Claire, and we're just about to have a chat about some questions that have come in relation to dogs and their behaviour. And some of these topics are really interesting. And as per life, nothing is straightforward. So Claire and I are going to discuss one of the questions that came in. Welcome, Claire.
Hello, welcome.
Hi. So we're going to discuss a question that came in from Shona. And Shona wanted to know about Odin, her Labradoodle, who is one of the friendliest boys ever, loves everybody that he meets, but on his own territory at home or in his street, again, still his territory, he's completely different. So if he meets the postman, and this is the issue, he's barking and behaving, aggressively towards the postman on his home turf and in his street. But if he meets the same postman in another street, the dog's completely different. So Shona was asking what the advice would be in order to overcome or help with that issue.
And it's not straightforward, is it, this one?
No.
There's quite a lot going on, and there's a lot to think about, and that's why I think it's quite good that we discuss it rather than just try and get one answer out there, because there's probably lots and lots of things going on and lots to think about here.
I think the bog standard answer would be, okay, well, you want to get the dog to have a positive association with the postman, so we're going to positively reinforce the postman. So certainly in this case, we know Shona's postman is very, very friendly and loves dogs, but how many postmen really have the time to be able to assist in dog training? Or do you have a postman's uniform that you could use, but it's not necessarily going to work because it wouldn't be the same person, it would be a different scent. So, I think the answer that we would most go to, that would be down on paper for most trainers, it would be their go-to would be that, we want to have these positive associations, so let's have the postman give the dog treats. Let's have the postman give the dog treats in other streets, so that Odin's not, guarding and protecting his turf. But there's too many variables.
Yeah, that's tricky. I mean, I don't know what it's like for you, but here we get postmen, we get postwomen. I'm sure they've all got a generic name these days, so please forgive me if I've got that wrong. They come at different times. The weather's very changeable, so sometimes they've got these big anoraks on with big hoods. Sometimes they come in a van and just literally jump out, deliver something and jump back in the van and they're gone. So it is one of those answers that sounds really good on paper, but really difficult to set up.
Really I mean, Royal Mail, they will be, and I know they have had lots of incidents with dogs, because ultimately postmen are encroaching on the dog's territory. They're putting something through the letter box. The dogs are obviously, instinctively going to want to guard. What is this that's coming through the door? They're curious, they're nosy, they're on alert. So there's lots of different emotions running through dogs when a postman comes to the door. Like you say, the variables of the weather, the time of year, the time of day. Is it a postman? Is it a postwoman? The uniforms are different, and of course these people are different. One might be having a good day, the next again day you've got somebody who's a bit stressed. Dogs are obviously sensing these emotions, so the variables mean that you're highly unlikely to get a good result with the on paper response that most trainers and behaviourists would give.
And we always jump to, do you think it's like, I've got a cartoon in my head of a dog chasing off a postman. Like, we have this assumption that it's aggression, the dog wants to see them off. But what about if it's novelty? What about these dogs that, whoa, person, they can't read uniforms very well, so again, we've got all these assumptions we're dealing with. The dog wants to guard, wants to see them off. And not all dogs are guard dogs. Some are very ineffective guard dogs.
Absolutely, but completely curious Because dogs are nosy creatures, aren't they, really?
Yeah, and it might be an opportunity, somebody new to play with. Wow, what's going on? The letters coming through the door may be like a toy, an event in the dog's day.
Well, as we know, so many people will complain about dogs that chew things belonging to the owners that are lying around. Dogs can't differentiate, so we know that we must manage the environment to keep everything out. So if a dog can reach it, it's fair game for the dog. It's not the dog's fault. And of course, the mail coming through might be addressed to mum or dad, but the dogs can't read, and it's fair game. What is this? So they want to get all involved with it.
So I think that's the first point, is get to know your dog. What's their breed? What's their personality and their temperament like? Are they dogs that are rewarded by novelty? Do they like new things? Or are they dogs that would just rather, no, just leave us alone. This is just me and my person. So I guess that's point one that you'd be looking at to find out.
I think if you had a dog that was perhaps of a nervous disposition, perhaps a box on the wall outside the house, so it's not encouraging or encouraging that behaviour, it's not encroaching on the dog's day, it's not really bothering the dog, that would be something that you could look at. And like you say, dogs don't discriminate against a uniform, it doesn't matter to them, it's what's going on. And in that kind of instance, it would always be really beneficial if dogs were recorded, and there's so many ways in which you can do that nowadays. If you could record your dog, if you weren't there, you'd see what goes on when the postman does come, what kind of reaction is the dog giving. And so a lot of people will say normal dog behaviour is aggressive, but it's often not. It's often absolutely misconstrued. It's normal dog behaviour and it's not aggressive, but it can appear that way.
So I guess that's point two, is what is the body language? What's going on? And if you can't decode that yourself, then grab a video and send it to someone like us, or post it on one of our pages and ask what we think, or what people that are part of our community think, because we've got lots of good dog folk about. So I guess that's point two, is what is actually the dog saying, rather than making an assumption. But the point you reminded me of there is, I've got lots of dogs here. So something I always guard against is group behaviour. Well, inappropriate group behaviour. One of those would be chasing and rushing at the gate. So I do have the box outside, and that takes away all the issues with somebody coming into the garden. And because they do come at different times, that trying to manage the dog so there isn't that big rush. Well, you'll have seen that at daycare. The big rush to the door, the big
Even if you don't hear the doorbell going, you know something's on, because you can just see them all beginning to fly.
And that's just managing that natural group behaviour of dogs. So perhaps if you've got more than one dog, maybe something like that is going on, and so you need a bit more management. And the other thing I did before the box and the door, I had a box inside the doors, so the mail came through the letterbox into a box that was up high.
Which is a favourite for shredders, isn't it? Look, I couldn't read my mail because the dog got it and it was gone. And again, we can't ask dogs not to be dogs. So the one behind the door is a little bit more, it's not intrusive, but the dogs are going to be more aware of it. But if you wanted to remove that issue completely, then you could put a box outside the wall.
Oh, absolutely.
On the wall outside, sorry. I think what Shona was kind of referring to as well is, so that Odin is a Labradoodle, the most friendliest boy, loves everybody. So she's quite surprised by his behaviour on his turf. And so I think what she'd like is for Odin to be like, hi, to the postman, hi there. But obviously he's of a different mindset. The dog's in a different mindset when he's on his turf. And I suppose, is your postman willing to do some training sessions with you? It's quite unlikely. It's a lot of postmen and women do carry dog treats on them in order to get out of issues. But is he going to be there, to give the dog treats? are you always going to be there? That takes a lot of organising and a very understanding postman. I'm sure Royal Mail would love to partake in dog training sessions, but because there's nothing organised throughout Royal Mail as a company, you're highly unlikely to get your local postman. And like you say, they change all the time. Some will like dogs, some won't, but you're highly unlikely to get them to want to or to be able to get involved in any training. And I think what Shona's really surprised about is the dog that he is in his street to the dog he is in the next street, which again, perfectly normal dog behaviour.
Normal. And so then that takes us on to context and conditions. Mm-hmm. The whole thing about the treats and everything, what that does is it puts all the focus onto what comes after the behaviour. Mm-hmm. And what we want to do is shift the focus onto what comes before. Mm-hmm. So what's happening before. So Odin's, well, we at the moment as we're talking, we don't actually have evidence that Odin is aggressing to the postman. Mm-hmm. But if Shona's his owner and she's calling it aggressing, we obviously, I will, I'll take her word for it. She knows her dog best. But just to bear in mind, we don't have that evidence at the moment. So if the dog's aggressing, then he's not an aggressive dog, but under those conditions, mm-hmm. he is showing aggressive behavior. Mm-hmm. Okay. So probably step one then is, rather than thinking about treats and food, is just thinking management, environmental management. So mm-hmm. we've talked about a few, but also your gates. Are your gates secure? Are your fences secure? Are there places you can put the dog so that the postman has safe access and the dog's secure? So there's all those things to change. And then long-term training is what could the dog do instead? So can you manage the dog? Can you call the dog back to you under those conditions? Can you move the dog to a safe place under those conditions? And that's probably where the hard work starts. And it's what we're here to help people with, to do those training plans for you and help you out. So I wouldn't expect people just to know what to do. But by keeping that focus on the treats and the food, we tend to lose focus on what's going on before. So what are the conditions? What are the contingencies? Mm-hmm. Doing that detective work. When does this happen? Why does it happen? What's happening? What went on before? What was the dog fed that morning? Mm-hmm. Did they have enough sleep? Yeah.
Because there are so many factors, because people don't really tend to know that dogs are very much like humans. So actually, the night before Odin kicked off at the postman, he'd had some junk food, he'd had treats that were filled with preservatives and colours, and he hadn't really slept well, and mum was a bit fretty or stressed that morning, so he was picking up on the emotions, which obviously, of course, is, I'm making this up as I go, but, these factors need to be taken into consideration, and I don't think people give their dog enough thought about it in that factor, and I think they give their dog too much credit. No, he meant to do that, when actually the brain's just switched and the dog's gone off and just responded in that way. So that it's such a big topic, but I think when people will come to us, most people, not Shona in this instance, but most people expect that there's a magic wand that we can just, snap our fingers, wave the wand, and that's it, there's a problem fixed. So for most dog training and behaviour issues, that isn't the case. And you need to there's a lot to think about, and you need to put a training plan into place. However, there's obviously always these management strategies that do help, but they are like a sticking plaster. It's not going to fix the issue. So if Shona kept him on lead or kept him out of the way of the postman, that removes the issue. But if he does come upon the postman at another time, the old behaviours would resurface because it's not been addressed.
Yeah, and it's just a dog, and there's optimum times in a dog's life for working on certain things, and if he's gone past that optimum period, then there's a good chance that if he's on his own with no person around, then the behaviour that he's practiced is going to resurface. So it's probably now a lifetime of management. I guess my other question that's coming up, something you've said, is why does he need to like the Postman? Okay, so you said he's a friendly dog, and I appreciate that the question, there's a puzzlement here as to why the behaviour is changing. I appreciate that, but maybe for anyone else that's watching, I'm not unfriendly to my Postman, but I'm not his mate. You know? Yeah. As long as he does his job and keeps his, there's that social distance, that politeness. We're I don't need to be best friends with him. And it is a him. I do have a male Postman. And I think dogs are the same. I think we've got this thing about dogs must be friendly and dogs must like everyone and everyone must like my dog. But sometimes life's just not like that, and I'm not sure it's healthy. I don't think we would bring up our children to be friendly with all strangers that come to the house.
Yeah, calling the kids out of the room. Come on, come and say hi to the postman. Shake his hand, give him a hug, and it's that.
Got presents for you.
Exactly. Take a sweetie from the postman. Exactly. But it's these behaviours where we probably think it's undesirable. I don't want my dog doing that. Well, maybe you don't, but dogs will behave in the way that dogs do, and it's much like children or other humans. Nobody will 100% of the time be the person or the dog you want them to. So a few people are always querying with me, friends and family, you walk your dogs separately? Yes, I do, because it's a management issue and I want my dogs to be learning the right habits, and I know if I take them both out together, that's not necessarily going to happen. So it's not just a management thing, it's the forward planning, forward thinking of, if I'm training one, this is how I want it to go. So I think a lot of people tend to think just that quick fix. And also, if you're on social media or wherever you are, that's all we're faced with just now, isn't it? Quick fix, all the dogs running around, and we'll fix this in 5 minutes a day. And while working with your dog for 5 or 10 minutes a day is fantastic and really beneficial, it kind of feels like false advertising, because there's very, very few behaviour and training issues that you can say, yep, 5 minutes a day, and within a couple of weeks, you'll not know the dog, or all your problems will be gone. And I think in the way in the world that you click on Amazon and you've got your order within an hour or within 24 hours, that the world expect that. And sometimes other trainers and behaviourists, etc., are jumping on that bandwagon, which isn't fair to the dog, because I think people have high expectations. And having a dog is much like having a child. You've got to put the work in.
Yeah, I think the training itself can be relatively quick. And you can be effective in a short space of time. I think what takes the time and never seems to get the exposure it needs is all the evaluation going on before. So I think one of the reasons for recording this is because you and I have these kind of conversations all the time. We have these kind of conversations with other trainers in our group when we're trying, like, what are all the variables? What's happening? And sometimes that's what people are paying us for quite often, is to do all that digging and homework and trying to work out what's happening when, and then come up with a plan. And the plan itself can actually be pretty undemanding. You may be consistent, but yeah. And if you do go onto social media groups, someone asks a question and people are throwing answers back. Do this, do this, do this. They've done no evidence gathering, no assessment work first. So yeah, so I think we should have more of these conversations, Lisa. I think we should record them. And I think we should let people join in this questioning process. So yeah.
I think it's really beneficial for people to see kind of what goes on behind the scenes, and that it is a little bit more in depth than say, okay, you want to teach Rover to sit? Well, there you go, that's it, you ask for a sit and you're simply done, because even with something as simple as that, there are variables going on. So I think it's beneficial for the public just to gain more understanding and more knowledge, so that they can have more empathy for their dog, and just to remove the frustration from the relationship, to have sort of manageable expectations of their dog.
Cool. So I think we should wind that one up.
Yeah, indeed.
Let people send us in some more questions. And if folk like this format, we'll do some more.
Yeah, just
We
send
can
the questions and send the questions, and then we'll try and get through them.
All right then. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.